All right, let's talk about a super common issue that can be a real headache to diagnose. One that could be quietly killing your car's performance. Yep, we're diving into the world of the small but absolutely critical fuel filter.
So, have you ever been driving and it just feels like your car, I don't know, lost its mojo? You hit the gas, but it just doesn't want to go. It feels sluggish, hesitant. Well, let me tell you, you are not imagining things, and we're about to figure out exactly what might be going on.
See, when your car starts acting up like that, it's not just being difficult. It's trying to tell you something. It's speaking to you. And a lot of the time, it's pointing a big flashing arrow right at the fuel system. So let's start with the key player here.
Okay, so think of your fuel filter as your engine's personal bodyguard. It's basically a super fine screen that has one job, to catch all the gunk. We're talking dirt, rust flakes, all that nasty sediment from the bottom of gas station tanks before any of it can get into the really sensitive and expensive parts of your engine. But what happens when that bodyguard gets overwhelmed? Well, just like a clogged drain, it starts choking off the flow of gasoline. Your engine is designed to get a very specific amount of fuel to run right, and when it doesn't get it, it starts to starve. And trust me, a starving engine is a very, very unhappy engine. So that brings us to the really important part. How can you, as the driver, actually hear what your car is trying to tell you? Let's break down the most obvious telltale signs that you've got a clogged fuel filter. You're going to notice this stuff the most when you're asking the engine to work hard. That sluggish feeling when you're trying to accelerate. Maybe it's having a hard time starting up, or it even stalls out at a stoplight. You might feel it shaking or idling really rough. Or maybe you just noticed you're hitting the gas station way more often. And hey, you ever hear a faint whiny noise from the back of the car? That could be your fuel pump literally screaming for help as it tries to force gas through that clog. Ignore that, and you could be looking at a way more expensive repair. And of course, a clog can absolutely trigger that dreaded check engine light. This quote just nails the number one feeling, doesn't it? You're trying to merge onto the highway, you put your foot down, and nothing. It just hesitates, sputters, and feels totally gutless. That's your engine, gasping for fuel. So here's what's actually happening on a technical level. The clog creates a massive drop in fuel pressure. The fuel pump might be working like crazy, going into overdrive to make up for it, but if the filter's blocked, it doesn't matter. The engine simply is not getting the volume of fuel it's screaming for. Okay, so we know what's happening, but the real question is why? I mean, where does all of this gunk that's clogging up your filter even come from in the first place? Let's do some detective work.
When a filter is brand new, life is good. Fuel flows freely. Over time, it does its job, trapping the normal bits of sediment you get from gasoline. But if you wait too long to change it, that buildup starts to cause problems. But the real killer? The thing that clogs a filter super fast? Rust. It can actually form from moisture inside your very own gas tank.
So generally speaking, your car's manufacturer is going to recommend swapping out the fuel filter somewhere in this ballpark, say every 30 to 60,000 miles. That's just part of normal, routine maintenance. But here's the key. What if you just replaced your filter, and maybe 10,000 miles later, you're having the exact same problems all over again? That is not normal. That's a huge red flag that you don't just have a clogged filter, you have a contamination source. And the number one cause for a filter that dies too young, by a long shot, is rust inside the gas tank. This happens all the time with cars that sit in storage, allowing moisture to build up and just wreak havoc. Of course, things like using poor quality gas, driving on dirt roads a lot, or even a simple mistake during installation can also be the culprit. Now listen up, especially for all you do-it-yourselfers out there with an inline filter. This is so important. These filters are directional. They're designed for fuel to flow in only one direction. There's a little arrow printed right on the housing to show you which way. If you install it backward, it's going to cause a whole world of problems instantly. It's a simple mistake, but man, it's a critical one. All right, enough about the problem. Let's talk solutions. What can you actually do about a clogged fuel filter to get your car running the way it's supposed to? Well, first things first, you got to know what you're dealing with. A lot of older cars have what's called an inline filter. It just sits right on the fuel line, and it's usually pretty easy to get to. But most newer cars, they have the filter inside the gas tank, and it's actually part of the whole fuel pump assembly. As you can imagine, that one is way harder to access and makes the job a lot more involved. So the fix really boils down to these 3 steps. 1, confirm it. Actually check the fuel pressure to make sure that's the problem. Don't just throw parts at it. 2, replace the filter. You don't clean these things, you replace them. And for goodness sake, make sure it's installed correctly. And 3, if that filter clogged up way too fast, you've got to play detective and inspect the fuel tank to find the source of all that gunk. Look, just swapping out the filter without figuring out why it got clogged is like putting a Band-Aid on a broken arm. You're just going to be right back here in a few months. To really truly fix this, you have to think about prevention. Let me say it again, because it's that important. The absolute biggest enemy of your fuel system is rust. It flakes off and will keep clogging filter after filter after filter until you deal with the tank itself. If your car has been sitting for a while, this should be your prime suspect. So, what can you do? Well, it's actually pretty straightforward. Use good quality fuel from gas stations you trust. Try not to let your car sit for months on end with the same old tank of gas. And honestly, the biggest thing? Just follow the maintenance schedule in your owner's manual. A little bit of prevention here is going to save you a massive headache and potentially a very expensive fuel pump down the road. And that's really the whole story. So I'll just leave you with this one simple question to chew on. When was the last time your fuel filter was changed? If you can't remember the answer, it might be time to take a look.